How you doing? Welcome. We are playing with a new plugin called Plasmonic. Kind of a cool hybrid physical modeling and subtractive synthesis. It's created by the creator of Absynth. So all of you that have played with Absynth, be prepared to be inspired again, because this is a truly wonderful, unique, creative, inspiring take on synthesis. Yes, Brian did it again. Brian Clevinger is the programmer, developer, one-man operation. As you can see, I'm going through various patches. I've made a demo, so I'll play that for you in a minute. So fun. It definitely has some sounds that give a nod back to the Absynth vibe. This is one of them. Aside from one pad that had a little shimmer verb, everything you're hearing is 100% in the plugin, the effects, everything for these sounds. Now in this demo, towards the end, there's a minute where this groove pops up from my own Unify plugin. This is from Cloud City. It's got Native American flute phrases, hip-hop kits, sub-basses, if you're into all sorts of modern genres of urban, down-tempo, chill, all that stuff, it's killer. Fun library. So, I'm gonna turn off the microphone and play the demo. This is called the Eternal Orbit, so enjoy. Cool stuff. So I was inspired a bit by the Mandalorian soundtrack. Just finished watching that show. Man, that last episode of season 2, it will mess you up. I still don't know what to think about what I saw. This gentleman by the name of Ludwig Göransson, really, really great hybrid film score and sounds that sound like they could be from Plasmonic type of a sound score. It's really cool. Really inspiring. So this demo is kind of in that kind of a nod in that direction. Let me give you a rundown of the interface. Before we do that, if you want more information on Plasmonic, the website for Brian and his company for Rhizomatic is rhizomatic.fr, rhizomatic.fr. There will be a link in the video description. You can download a demo or buy it. It's on an introductory price right now. For both Mac and Windows, there's standalone VST3. For Mac, there's also the audio unit version. And then just briefly, this video is sponsored by my own website, pluginguru.com, where you can buy Unify. We have free reverbs that you can get for the Dragonfly series, which is free early reflection, room, hall, and plate, which are really, really nice. They're free, so enjoy. So pluginguru.com, over 80 libraries, Unify, the Cloud City library that I showed you earlier, all that kind of stuff. Let me hit a key right here. And there is at a bigger size. If you want to change the interface size, click the little triangle right here and you have up to 200%. You can resize the window. This is the layout for it. So it's really easy to call up the patches. If you see little blue lights up here, that means the sound is being sent into the resonator. If you see blue lights over here, it means sound is also being sent into the filter. That's kind of the flow. You have two wavetable-based, really cool oscillators. Along with the oscillators, there's Impulse, which is a sound trigger. In Korg wave drum land, we call it the hammer. And you have different shapes for this that goes into the waveguide resonator. Physical modeling kind of is based on that, plus additional parameters to get into more complex versions of that. Applied Acoustic Systems has a physical model-based plugins like Strum, and they have even a really cool delay object that has a physical modeled resonator in a delay line, which is super cool. Korg in the Oasis and Kronos, and I believe Nautilus as well have the string model, which is like a more complex physical model where there's actually 6 different sets of offsets for the parameters, so you can make it sound like 6 different strings on a guitar, which is great. Even structure inside of Logic is physical model based. So this isn't new, but this interface, this concept of sending the sound, just clicking over here, and now you're sending this wave-shaped physical modeled sound into a multimode filter. You have faders that you can right-click and assign to all sorts of parameters really easily. As you see, these faders have a cool parameter setup where they have a coarse and a fine, depending on where you click. So if you're like really into a resonant sound, and then you need to fine tune that, instead of going to hold down your modifier like you do on most plugins that do fine resolution, here you just click where it says fine, and now you're changing it in very small increments versus coarse, right? So you have an interface that lets you go between coarse and fine while you're still playing. Really cool. Other things in the interface, you have a little area up here that shows you how many voices are being allocated. Up to 16 can be used. The MIDI channels, the MIDI setup. If you click this, it opens a window where you can change to MPE mode. You can change your polyphony. If you call up a patch and it's like killing your CPU, maybe it's using more voices of polyphony, so you can go up here and set it to fewer. It does get to be a little CPU heavy. This is version 1.0. I'm sure there will be refinements and optimizations over time. Over here is your modulation section, and there's LFOs, ADSRs, which are just ADSR-based envelopes. Expression for where you find pitch bend settings for what the pitch bend range is. All sorts of things for aftertouch sensitivity, stuff like that for how things work. If you're working in MPE, these will be up so you can modify those parameters. You have to go up here and change this to MPE mode in order to do that, because these parameters don't work unless it's been told to be looking for information from MPE channels and so forth. And then trigger, that's the horse I have tied up at the hitch out front. No, trigger is a repeating impulse, and you can modulate this. You can have timing of BPM, or you can go over here and say absolute. Now it's 2 milliseconds. A good example of this would be in the atmospheric after the rain. Check this out. This is really cool. So on the trigger, see how the trigger is going up and down? If you right click on this, you can see that random being used to have a trigger into the impulse instead of it just being a waveform all the time. Lets you get into these plucked kind of sounds, right? So let's go over here to File. Initialize is a starting point to. You have an impulse going into the resonator. You can change the parameters right away. If you go right here, you can see how you can choose the routing between the filter and the resonator. If I go and click right here, I've modified it to where now this resonator is going into the filter. So I could right click on this, say I want to use envelope B, so go ADSR, turn on B. Let's make this B short and a sustain of 0. So we got to click. And then over here, notice that it's got below. And this means that it's taking from whatever the value is and subtracting. But I typically am going above because I want the value to start above what my value is and go down instead of just staying where I am and going lower. But the filters and the envelopes are really snappy. On top of this, see right here? This is the curvature for the decay and the attack. So you can change the curvature this way. It's not over here in the envelope. It's actually right here on the modulation. You can go over here and choose. You can invert it, etc., stuff like that. That's the basics. Macro, this is where you assign something to be one of these 8 macro faders. You can hit done. If you hover over these, you see a little dot. If you click this, it will highlight to show you what parameters are assigned to that particular modulation source. So like here it lights up the low pass filter cutoff. So you can see what is assigned by just clicking that, because there's no modulation page in Plasmonic at this point with version 1.0. Okay, you have saturation. 3 types of saturation: warm, flamed, maple, or kryptonite. You can get really cool. Right? And if you don't want to use the impulse, turn off impulse, turn on noise. And turn off impulse here and add noise. And you're getting into fluty wind kind of territory. You have EQ. It has a high shelf, a low shelf, and then a parametric sweepable mid. So if you set this to like 10 kilohertz, this will only increase frequencies above 10 kilohertz. So bring this down, and you'll start to hear it hit more of the high frequency where it exists. So it's not doing a curve where it increases frequencies below this. It's from this and above. So it's like one of those bell shapes. Yeah, so you get the idea. Same for low. You can say at here, 261, increase it, or decrease from 264, or what, 254 and below. And then the mid band, if you bring the bandwidth really small, becomes resonant. And these you can right click and assign this to an LFO, sweeping the EQ frequencies. No problem. Then you have 2 effects that are spaces, as they're considered. Clicking to turn them on. It's actually a filter delay network, which means it's just a boatload of delays, but it makes a unique kind of reverb space. Or not. Bring up the depth. Bring down the depth, up the feedback, back into reverb. There's also a thing called sympathetic frequencies. And again, you can modulate this with all sorts of... If you turn on an LFO and it doesn't do anything, it's probably because it's not turned on. So go over here and click it on. You can set to absolute timing. So you can definitely get into cool new territory sonic-wise. This is not your standard filter, delay, reverb, EQ. You know, it's far more than that. And the patches, click right here. This is where you find the patches. You can go through and choose different categories. There is no category search. Things like that don't exist quite yet, but they will in the future, I bet. But you'll hear sounds that are like, oh, what the heck is that? All sorts of places to go. So my dear friend has done it again. I have been friends with Brian for about 30 years. He released Absynth. It was one of the first software synthesizers you could buy in the VST format that had just been introduced. And I played with it and I was like, oh my gosh, this is just crazy cool. So I wrote him a note and I sent him some patches and he put those patches into version 1 of Absynth voicing. So it was really kind that he invited me to make patches again. Wonderful synth. It will inspire you if you're into cinematic. You're gonna love this to pieces. Make sure you check out his video channel. He has a wonderful video showing it with MPE. I'll put a link in the video description. This is a synthesizer not to miss, my friends. So, Plasmonic. So that's it. First video of 2021 in the bag. Thank you for your time, for your support. And we'll see you soon.